Yeah. Testing. Okay, I'm gonna let the people in and then you can start, okay?
Just raise your hand, it's on, time to go. I'm calling to order this special meeting of the City Council of the City of Bandera, Monday, April 6th, 2020 at 10 a.m. Council members are present, city secretary is present, city administrator is present. Due to the COVID-19 medical emergency, there are no other people in the room with us today, but they are possibly watching us over here on our Zoom broadcast. Item 2 is the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Council, because this is a special meeting, we can forego this. Do you choose to forego it, or would you like to participate?
I'd like to do the pledge.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Visitors to be heard has been suspended by the governor's order. Item 4 is the consent agenda, the approval of minutes for the meeting held on March 3rd, 2020.
Motion to approve.
Rebecca makes a motion to approve, and then seconds. All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Item 5, discussion and possible action on the following items. A, appointment to fill city council seat vacated by Bryce Kavanaugh. We have 3 candidates. They're not present here today because, of course, of the lockdown, but I think we're familiar with all of them. And is there a motion? Jerry?
I'd like to make a motion to appoint John Clark.
Is there a second?
Second.
Then second. Discussion? Go ahead, Sadie.
She seconded.
Lynn, go ahead.
I am going to advocate for Don Clark although the other 2 candidates are both very good candidates as well, but Don Clark has been involved with the city of Bandera since he moved here. He's held all positions, city administrator, he's been the mayor, he's been a city councilman, he's served on the EDC. So to have somebody like him come in to serve the remaining 7 months would be somebody that I think would be an asset to the city. He knows how a city is run. He may also be able to help Jay or anybody here in the city look for funding for the small businesses. He's a business owner himself. He's now retired, and so he would be able to dedicate time to the city. Also, when I read his application, where it says, "What do you hope to accomplish by serving?" He says, unity, street repairs, and water and sewer. And those are the main topics that the city council has been discussing for the last 2 years. And I think that he has a lot of knowledge in all of those areas. So my vote would be for Don Clark.
Thank you.
Okay, first I'd like to say I appreciate the three people that stepped up and volunteered to do this. My problem is I don't want to go back to the way we used to do things. In the last couple of years, we've tried to move forward with better planning, look ahead, trying to address some of these problems. We can't go back to the old ways of doing things, which were, temporary fixes, Band-Aids and stuff. There was no forward thinking processes in the past until, we started just recent years. We realized that we have to keep building on our economic base and keep moving forward. We have big problems that were never addressed. They were talked about, they were talked to death, but we just never went anywhere. We were staying even. We never progressed. So I would be in favor more of someone more recently engaging.
Thank you.
I'll just go ahead and say too that, while I appreciate again everyone submitting their application and being willing, I do know that Darcy's planning on running in the future, but I also know that Tom has served most recently and came in very close in the last election, and that is the one of the three that I intend to support. So I'm happy to go to vote if it's you.
Yeah, I of course am for Don, for really a lot of the reasons that Lynn had mentioned. But also I voted against filling this position and that got voted down. But I feel that we should not be giving somebody an advantage by being an incumbent, because there's definitely an advantage there. Referencing Tom typically appeared to make good decisions in the past, but I had asked him right after the election when he congratulated me, did he get out to campaign and he held his hand up and said, big goose egg. So he didn't have the desire back then to put forth the effort to get reelected. And I really feel more so that he was voted out because he was an incumbent. He had all the opportunity during that time he was an incumbent to get garner support, which he was not able to. So unlike the other ones, the first time they were running, they actually got elected. But he got appointed to begin with, and then he never even put forth the effort, and he admitted that in his campaign, and he said zero. So if he had so much desire to be on city council, you would have thought he would put a little bit more than zero.
Mayor, I
On
thought the
that.
motion was on Don Clark, not the rest of
Well, I think the discussion, I don't know, maybe
Well,
I'm out of order.
I think we should move to vote. Everybody's had their say. So.
Okay, the motion is on the table, seconded by Lynn. All in favor of Don Clark? All opposed? I'm going to vote for Don, and for the reason that he's going to be a member of council, a member of a 5-person council. He's not the mayor, he's not the administrator. He will be in the decision making, but he will not be making the decisions, and that's why I'm going to vote for him.
And that's, if I was going to get another chance to speak, that's what I was also going to say as well, is that he will be
The vote been taken, so let's move on.
a city council member.
Okay, so moving on. Item B, approval of ordinance 374, amending ordinance 373, declaring a local medical disaster. As you know, on March the 20th, we find this thing, and it stands as it is. Are there further restrictions? I've heard it said by citizens, they'd like to see the hotels and motels shut down, B&B, the short-term rentals, and the RV parks.
Actually, go ahead.
First of all, I do want to make sure that we include what the governor included in this Exhibit A, because it is not completed in the definitions and further guidelines. We did not include the tattoo studios, which I think we have one here in Bandera, piercing studios, or cosmetology salons. Those were not included in our Exhibit A.
Well, that's his most recent statement. It wasn't his original statement. The cosmetology salons came in just last week.
Well, I'd like to see it added then.
Yes, ma'am.
May I just ask, when we approved this originally, we had Exhibit B as the full executive order from the governor, and then the health department piece, and then ours was, our local was Exhibit B. So I didn't understand it to be that it was necessary for us to specifically identify in our local ordinance everything that the governor had already covered, because that's already covered. So,
That's correct.
so is the format gonna be a bit similar, where we have the governor's executive order as Exhibit A, and then ours will follow up as Exhibit B?
Yes,
Okay, because that's not exactly what we're looking at here though, right?
right.
But that is what it is.
Yes, what happened with this is we had drafted a version, thinking it was an amendment, so some of this stuff could be left out, but the entirety of 373 will be in effect as this says,
Okay,
and then we'll amend it by
adding.
adding 374 will supersede 373. If we amend Exhibit B.
So the local considerations start on number 7.
Right,
So 7 down is what you put into place last time about the city park, utility department,
yes, I'm at the door.
skate park, sandage park.
So we would start with H if you choose
She
to.
can go on, it's fine. So if
That
you want to
makes
add
sense.
any
It's all
local.
there, it's all there.
Yes, I understand that.
So
Rebecca.
speaking of the hotels and overnight stays, I hear you say you've had concerns with citizens, and they're wanting them shut down. However, I know that we have long-term, and Jerry, you can probably speak to this, and you as well, where we have long-term, temporary residents in the county from out of state that are already here, they're already existing, they're not planning on going back home. How do we fashion this to exclude those folks or people who are already here? And then, is it conceivable to limit overnight guests to just county residents? I mean, I think the idea is that we don't want people from infected communities coming in and sharing the,
Let me
you know,
expand on
the
that.
thread.
The local RV parks have, well, Riverside and Pioneer have put up signs that say no new arrivals. I checked with Pioneer yesterday. They're not accepting any overnights. They have no new reservations until June. They have not canceled their May reservations yet, but they could very well do that. I think that we should perhaps restrict RV parks, whatever, to essential travelers. Now, essential travelers are those who are defined by the Homeland Security.
Essential
I would agree-
service.
I would agree with that.
That's exactly what I would agree with. Basically, it's already been stated, the governor had ordered all activity apart from seeking or providing essential services to cease. So my understanding, interpretation of that is just that, the only people that we might possibly allow to come in would be one of those people that are a part of the essential services. Assistant employees of those essential services such as law enforcement, health, care workers,
Utility
or
workers and such.
construction, whatever it may be, that's already listed as essential business.
Then,
I would like to be able to also maybe say that if they leave, they can't come back, or, you know, that once if they leave the park, they can't come back, at least through this April 30th order that the governor has in place. Like if they leave now, then they can't return until April 30th.
from my experience, the Winter Texans that are in Pioneer, and Jerry, I ask you to speak to this too, they're not going home. They're staying right where they are. There's no, compared to the rest of the nation, we're in pretty decent shape, but that could very easily be added. Yes, Jerry.
And I can't speak for the other parts, but I've addressed that with my current tenants, that if they do leave, don't expect to come back.
The only concern I have is in our ordinance, we have it to where we can do it 10 miles out. I thought it said 10.
10.
And I don't see how we can really enforce that. Jay,
We can't enforce the hotels, motels, RV parks outside. It's for different things law enforcement can enforce, which we probably would never want to even consider doing that, unless it's really something, a war, for example.
Jerry.
I disagree with that interpretation. I do think that we can restrict pretty much anything we want within a 10-mile radius of the city according to the laws from the state.
Well, let's get an opinion on that from Dan and,
I would just wonder, can you think of any examples of something that we would need to be?
Sure, because for example, other RV parks just right outside of the city limits, those people obviously are going to be coming into our city, utilizing those resources. So it's almost as the same as allowing them into our city.
I guess we have the farm
And-
now.
Well, we've got several. You like to go through them. Twin Elm, we've got Antler Oaks Lodge, we've got
Okay.
all over the place.
I believe Antler Oaks is shut down to new arrivals. Antler Oaks is shut down to new arrivals, I believe. However, there is one RV park just outside of town that is inviting people to Bandera because we are COVID free. I find that a little bit.
Well, at what point is the commissioners court going to, is there any communication with them in terms of cooperation and efforts to stop the spread?
I've talked to Jack, and it seems to be they don't want to take any real hard steps. I don't understand why they haven't declared it as a countywide disaster for their own benefit, much less that of the stopping the spread of the virus. I don't know what's going on with commissioners.
I think it would be helpful with the RV parks, though, if we could at least enter into an interlocal agreement with the county in order to be able to enforce the RV park rules that we want to put in place. That would make enforcement a little bit easier. Whether we'll be able to get that, I don't know.
And I'm sorry.
The time it would take to enter into an interlocal agreement, this thing will probably be over. The most efficient way would be if commissioners took action in the county. Yes, ma'am.
Or like you said, checking with the city attorney, and if we can enforce this with 10 miles out, then I say we do it. The other piece is, speaking of promoting Bandera as a destination, or is anyone aware if the CVB is still marketing Bandera?
If they are you asking if they still
I
are?
am asking if they still are.
I haven't personally seen anything recently.
I haven't
But-
checked either.
Maybe that's just something we need to address, just so it's clear.
Well, I mean, if someone is rolling out a marketing campaign from within the city limits, I would think that, I don't know, maybe another point to ask Dan about.
I will ask Dan about that. Bill is not here to speak to this. I don't know if this is gonna put that much if they're going to patrol 10 miles out or take complaints of certain things that are happening within 10 miles and respond to them. So we'll need to work out how, if we decide to use our jurisdiction 10 miles out. Lynn?
So my understanding is then if we approve the RV, B&B, hotel, motel for only essentials, and it goes 10 miles out, then that 10 miles will be covered. This will be in place 10 miles out.
That's if Dan agrees. Yes, ma'am.
And enforcement
Any
for a
chance
lot
we
of
can
these.
get an opinion on that while we're in this meeting? I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I
Go
apologize.
I
ahead.
think that would be a good idea as well. I agree with that.
I can call Dan.
Opinion from Dan, our city attorney, about the 10 miles out.
I think enforcement of it probably would be very simple as far as just make an anonymous call periodically to these parks and B&Bs and et cetera. You wouldn't even have to go visit.
Maybe on their
because
session,
that
even
right there is.
they're wanting to know if they enforce the
Well, let's let
RV
the
parks.
marshal work that
Need
detail out
to
to
be
the
closed to
agree that yes, we can in
people
fact
coming
enforce this
in.
10 miles
If
out.
they can
Jane, you have any
enforce
thoughts on
it
that?
outside the city.
No, I don't. Just a brief talk with the judge last week before last, whatever day it was. The way he explained it to me was the only thing we could enforce would be a criminal act. Now, I don't know if that's considered criminal or not, and I'm sure Dan will have a good answer. I know that if this happens, we're probably gonna catch a lot of kickback from the county, but that's, so be it.
Well, just Lynn.
I mean, the
It
county
almost
has-
seems ridiculous to me, 10 miles, because, I mean, you're talking past Pike Creek. I mean, that would be an enforcement nightmare, to say the least, you know. And the only way I think our marshals can handle it is if they had help from the sheriff's department, and I don't see that.
I happen to agree, not just for keeping new arrivals from coming. I mean, they're gonna come here anyway. Folks can drive into town and go to Lowe's, go get gas, go do whatever they're gonna do. I think the 10 mile out thing is putting too much of our authority out into the county. Yes, ma'am.
What would you think about it just being in the RV parks in the city limits?
Okay.
What would you think about just imposing this for what we
Okay.
have in our municipality? The RV parks, instead of the,
And hotels, motel, all overnight stays.
Okay.
in just in the city.
Okay.
that we
All right,
have
I'll
that
tell 'em.
control in the city.
Thank
I'm,
you.
I'm in agreement with that.
Ma'am,
What about the?
Mayor?
Mayor,
Dan said that under the ordinance, you can go outside the city limits, but you can't enforce it. The local police department, marshal's office cannot write citations. They cannot enforce anything outside the city limits. And his recommendation would be to focus on inside the city limits and possibly reach out to the county to try to get them to do something elsewhere.
Thank
so,
you.
should we move on?
Okay, so the answer to that is H would be to restrict.
I wrote something down. You want to hear it?
Yes, please.
So limit hotels, motels, overnight stays, RV parks. Does that cover everything? To overnight stays related to essential services travel.
Did we include B&Bs? Or we're not including
I just
that?
said overnight stay.
Oh, okay.
Short-term rentals, I guess is
Short-term
the
rentals.
phrase.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, you want to put that in the form of a motion?
Yeah, do we want to do these individually?
I think that it's all one topic. It could all be,
Well, I mean, this would be H. This
this
would
would
be
be
our,
H.
okay.
Yes, let's take it one at a time.
So I would make a motion to amend ordinance 374.
373.
Oh,
We're
We're not
adding,
doing
we're
this.
adding it
I
That's
thought,
correct.
I thought we were doing this as 374 for the changes.
Yes.
374 is where the changes are going.
Right.
So we don't need to do an amendment.
Let's not even go past that. 373, we're amending with 374, so carry on.
Okay. The motion is for item H to limit hotel, motel, short-term rentals, RV parks, all overnight stay locations to overnight stays related to essential services travel.
Sherry,
I'll second that.
Sherry seconds. Any more discussion about the hotel motel overnight stay thing?
Do we want to go ahead and include that though? How are we going to address this 10-mile radius, in other words? That we're discussing that.
It's just city limits.
How will that happen? I mean, are we going
Dan just said we couldn't enforce anything outside the city limit.
to not enforce it, but actually at least put it out there? Because I feel, I have confidence in the community that they'll do the right thing if they're directed to. I think enforcement will be,
I need a
non-issue.
second on this motion
I
before we
think
say.
We've got a second.
You have a second.
sorry,
Did you second? Okay, thank you. Now, carry on.
that's pretty much it.
Okay,
I think it just needs to be in the city limits. That's what our city attorney recommended. We need to put that somewhere in this ordinance. I don't know where we need to put
these are
it.
local rules. If you,
It's a given. I mean,
Okay.
these are
City limits.
city ordinances.
these are Exhibit A, local disaster rules and regulations, local being the city limit. Lynn?
On the question,
Okay.
May I ask a question before we vote? Do any of these include the ETJ? No, okay. I'm gonna give a-
Further discussion? Sherry?
Could we not at least include ETJ? Because that's,
Outside the city limits?
yeah, but we can do it. It's just the enforcement issue.
It's within 10 miles, if that's what you want to. ETJ is already within the 10-mile radius.
I understand that, but if we don't want to go out 10 miles, we'd be willing to discuss
We can't,
just including ETJ.
we
or
cannot
not
enforce anything in the ETJ, period, be it,
But
except
I'm not-
signs for some reason.
I'm not talking about so much enforcement, we're just making it a rule or whatever you want to call it.
I say we all write, or
I'm sorry.
I said we all write letters to our commissioners and
Lynn?
I can't think of, that many in the ETJ, so let's vote and move on.
I'll further-
Just one last statement. But the judge did applaud the RV parks for doing that. So it implies that it's going along with this. You know, that he thought it was a good idea. And I'm wondering if we can't some way partner with them, work with them to encourage that.
We've already talked about that. So,
Right.
I mean, that's that.
Call for
I
a
think we
vote,
need to
Mayor.
call for a
Yeah.
vote now.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Okay, any other restrictions you want to put within the city limits? Lynn?
I just would like for discussion, our city park. I certainly want to be able to keep it the way that it is right now until the April 30th, if that's in agreement with everybody else. But next weekend is Easter weekend. And what I would like to propose, and I don't really want to do that because then it excludes our county residents and city residents, but I would like to see the park closed Saturday and Sunday, nobody in the park. Just to prevent people from outside. I know they're not supposed to gather. I just think the enforcement of next weekend may put a lot on our law enforcement to have to go in there and say, you're not supposed to have 5 people together or 6 people together or 10 people together. You need to separate. And this is just for discussion. I'm welcome to hear anybody else's opinion.
I had this very discussion with Martin Park this morning. And we discussed at a distance, the implications here. He said he thought he would like to have the restrooms opened up if we're gonna leave the park open. But then you're gonna have a problem. People are gonna steal all the toilet paper. You're still gonna have people, you won't be able to enforce how many people are in the restrooms and stuff like that. Yeah, and I agree. If we shut the park down completely for that one day, residents gonna raise hell about it. But, so be it. I mean, it's gonna be a nightmare for our marshal's office to try to enforce because the people will be coming, you know, there's people still going to the beaches and groups and stuff, so. I would be in favor of closing the park for Easter Sunday.
For just Sunday or for Saturday and Sunday? What do you think?
I think just Sunday, so.
I
The
would
other
be in
thing I-
favor of Saturday and Sunday if I had a chance to vote.
Can you call Will?
Because, you know, this is one of our biggest weekends as far as the park goes. And although the governor is saying, you know, family with one household, well, you know, you're not gonna be able to limit it to 6 people who live here and 4 people who live there, and they're all kin to each other, and they all wanna sit over here and have a picnic. So I don't know, guys. I think Saturday and Sunday would be a better idea.
And what I'm looking at is the enforcement of it. Just how hard it's gonna be for Will to enforce it. And I just feel like if we do decide that we are gonna close that park Saturday and Sunday, or just Sunday, that we get that information out there somehow, that our park is closed, so that those that traditionally come on that weekend know that they are not gonna be able to use the park.
So I'm reading this, item E, 7E from the ordinance, our local ordinance. And I remember there was language in the motion that said no congregating specifically.
Hey, Will, it's Jill. Hey, council session.
And it said activities were limited to. So I guess the point in bringing that up is that the intention of this original item was to restrict people congregating in the park. Right? We wanted to allow people to walk through, bike through, horseback ride, go fishing, but not in the fashion that people are used to hanging out in the park. Given that there's no congregating allowed, I don't know if it's not just as easy to allow city residents to have their morning walks. I mean, if the marshals are gonna have to run people off, if they congregate, they're gonna have to do that, even with the ordinance as it is.
Jill?
I called Will for your request, and he said he agrees that it would be easier for law enforcement to close the park completely Saturday and Sunday. That way they will spend more time separating billing and everything. So his opinion is close it completely Easter weekend.
Yeah, I think worst that can happen is people are going to ride their horses on the side of the road, and walk on the road like that.
Okay.
Then I would suggest that a temporary closure for April the 11th and 12th would be item I, just a temporary, yes.
So move. I want to make a motion to that.
And that is,
I'm sorry, do we have to say anything about it resuming the normal
Not if
ordinance
it's
that
a
we have in
temporary
place, or is that
closure.
not
I
necessary?
believe since we're specifying these 2 dates as a temporary closure, I think that would do it.
do you need specific language for the motion?
I think Glenn made a motion for temporary closure for April 11th and 12th.
City Park.
Time, we'll need time starting like 11:59 or 12:01.
12:01 a.m. April 11th till 11:59 p.m. on April 12th.
Thank you, Lynn.
Glenn made a motion. We need a second.
I'll
Jerry,
second that.
Jerry seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? All in favor, not opposed.
Jill, there's someone at the door. I don't know who it is.
She's going around.
Are there any other? Yes, Rebecca.
I have one. I haven't been in a lot of stores around town. But I don't really know for sure. Maybe some of you have some input on what so there are certain essential services that are stores that are open and operating in town. is there anything that we can do? I have a couple of ideas about limiting capacity, limiting maybe based on their C of O occupancy allowance, like a percentage. And then, are you confused about that?
No, I'm not confused, I'm just listening.
Okay. The idea is that there are certain stores that I have driven by and the parking lots are packed. And I don't know what measures are being taken in the interior to promote social distancing and to limiting the crowds. I can speak to an experience that my daughter had where she was in a store waiting in a line, and while there were lines on the floor, some people are just not taking it upon themselves to space themselves from other people because they're having to be asked by strangers, will you please back up, like, will you move away 6 feet away from me, please? So in considering measures that the city could take under our statutory authority to limit the number of people going in a store at a time, and I don't know what kind of stress that would cause on the store themselves, but if it were a consistent value, for example, a percentage of their occupancy capacity that they were going to be required to enforce as a new maximum, a new temporary maximum. And then again with the line spacing on taped out on the floor or what have you, which I understand a lot of stores are doing, but I think we could make it a requirement. I think that's the type of measure that we could include locally.
Any essential services such as grocery stores,
Anything that's allowed to be open.
well, that's about all that's allowed to be open now,
Right.
is restaurants and grocery stores and gas stations.
So I've heard of people of other cities going to like 5 or 10 customers in the store for every 1,000 square foot on the inside. So maybe we could, I know that would be hard for the businesses to enforce, but I think that is something that I would like to kind of look into as well. I would like to also see that they all have social distancing markers on the floor. Most of them do, because I did have the opportunity just driving around yesterday, going in, just checking the stores out, that most of them are complying with the coronavirus social distancing. Most of them have the plexiglass sneeze guards at the registers. A lot of them have signs on their door, talking about the social distancing. We have one that's only allowing 2 customers in at a time. A lot of them are not allowing dining in. So overall, I was pleased that a lot of people were. Not everybody is though. I would like for Will to at least have the authority to say, let's get some markers on the floor. Let's do things to have cautions against the coronavirus.
Jerry had said a minute ago, yes, Jerry.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea as far as the percentage of capacity. It sounds good versus limiting it to a set number of, say, 10 people. I think that does make sense. It's now just where you set it at and how many people are still allowed in there. So it gets kind of complicated.
When you mentioned so many people per 1,000 square feet, I think that's bound to be pretty closely related to how the occupancy is calculated to begin with. And I just think that capping it at a percentage of that makes it just a uniform way to measure that, like you said, instead of nitpicking who can have 10 people at a time, that just gets a little muddy, just in the effort to keep it clear. And I don't know how far along Jimmy is in his work with the CFOs, but we have, I think it's a relatively small number of businesses to specifically identify, to communicate directly with. And I think we could probably create as a city a sign for each and every business and maybe if it has to be fill in the blank so that it's just one printed on a red, something bright to catch the eye of the customers on the way in.
That's a good idea.
But it's something that's issued from the city as a directive.
Yes.
Lynn?
Yeah, I agree. I think a percentage of the occupancy rating would be the proper way to go. And again, because every time I go by a Super S, the parking lot is full, so there's still people in need. I know there's a lot of people that just disregard everything and go ahead, but, what kind of percentage are we talking about? Have a number in mind.
10 to 20.
I was thinking more like 25% capacity.
25% with the encouraging of social distancing within the, of course, we can't, all we can do is encourage social distancing. So,
Well, in the lines though, we can put those, we can make sure those are on
There's
the
markers,
checks.
distant markers.
Yeah, I think 25% might be a workable deal because I don't know, how are you, I guess it's gonna be up to the individuals to keep things moving, so to speak, because a lot of people are gonna be slower, shopping than others, and, that's not gonna satisfy their needs, so.
so is it gonna be 25% of capacity or as allowed by the certificate of occupancy for the individual location?
Right.
Yes, and I'm also intend to say in this motion that you have to actually have a current C of O. If you're an essential service and you don't have a current C of O,
Well, a current C of O is only issued one time per business.
I understand that.
So,
You mean valid?
Valid.
yeah,
They have to have a valid C of O.
okay, so summarize, what do you got so
I'm
far?
working on it.
Yes, ma'am.
I do want to say, and I know that we probably can't enforce this, but the businesses that have the carts, there's absolutely no sanitizing of the carts in the city limits.
Well, there's no sanitizer anyway.
But you can get bleach and water.
That's
and
true, you can make a bleach water solution, sure.
Sanitizer typically is available through distributors for these facilities. I can get some myself.
But even if it's not a spray bottle with bleach and water, just to spray down those carts after they've been used.
In fact, I have a quantity that I probably would donate in the meantime if any of these facilities are having trouble obtaining it. Because there has been times it was back ordered and I had to wait, but I do have a quantity. I do want to donate because I think that
But I
is
do want to
extremely
also
important.
reiterate that.
Oh, I was just gonna give a little update. I was at the grocery store yesterday and they had a company in there putting big, they had the blue lines. They were putting down big stickers that said, "Do not pass here, stop."
Oh, that's good.
They were in doing it while I was there and they did have the wipes, but they weren't wiping them down for you. You had to get the wipe and wipe it down yourself.
And I just want to reiterate that all of the businesses in the city of Bandera are doing their part to protect themselves and the customers coming into the stores. I was very pleased to see it.
Yes, ma'am.
At this point in time, I'm not sure how this a legitimate C of O is gonna pan out if we make that part of our motion. I don't think it'd be appropriate this time in case we do have some essential. I mean, what if Lowe's didn't have an official C of O? We're gonna shut that store down?
Well, the only point being is I think the city and them need to work to expedite that because the maximum occupancy has to be calculated Hold on, let me check right here.
Why don't,
They have been updating all the C of those.
why don't we make this particular J effective
They do not.
Wednesday night at midnight, giving people, managers, an opportunity to come up with a plan, if they don't have a C of O, come get one, give them 48 hours to prepare for this to go into.
Does that in regulation enforcement fall under John Stipe? The fire marshal? Is he the one that,
Fire marshal has no jurisdiction in the city.
Mayor is a fire
So-
marshal in the city.
so who is in charge of that?
Code enforcement. All of our deputies and our marshal.
How they calculate that, just based upon square footage?
Yes, there's a formula.
So
Depends on
pretty
whether it's
simple.
seating or standing,
It's something that could be issued fairly quick, right? It doesn't take an inspection.
well, it
of
does
the
take an
facility.
inspection because there are lighted exit signs, there are certain number of exits, there's covered electric plugs, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff.
I don't know how soon we'll be able to expedite a CFO with with what's going on right now. I'm just agreeing with Glenn. I think that, I mean, I do want to see that happen, and we may give them, you know, a certain amount of time, but right now, I'd like to see this other go into effect.
Well, it's
Well-
based on their C of O. It's based
Okay.
on their maximum capacity.
Couldn't you, for those circumstances where they don't have CFO or CO, I'm sorry, they don't have a CO, couldn't we go and just set a number?
I think we need
Oh.
to.
No, that would start.
20 people until that CO is obtained?
I'm not sure.
I'm just trying to think of ways to work through this
Rebecca,
because
what
I
are
know
what are you referencing as to who,
Jimmy's spreadsheet
from when?
this morning.
No, from how far back?
It's his current
Current.
work.
Current
It's
work.
his current work.
Okay, look back and see if the chicken coop has one. 402 Main Street.
We went through what they did was they went through all the files to see if we couldn't find one and
Yes.
the store could not
They didn't
produce
find it,
one.
okay.
Some of the stores were able to produce them, it's just we had bad record keeping here in past years.
That's what I was asking,
So-
do we just have bad record
So
keeping?
they've been contacting all the stores that didn't have one on file here. Yes, it was bad record keeping in the city from previous years.
Oh, I agree.
Um,
And this may be one of those instances.
I don't know that could we not just allow our city administrator to work with the code enforcement officer to specifically oversee any essential services that have an issue with their CFO, to make sure we get a good calculation of, because we can get a calculation on capacity, right?
BB has been working fairly quickly with getting these locations.
So, I mean, I'm comfortable leaving the language of what's stated on their valid CFO, because that is what we need to base it off of. However, if Jay finds issue with any of those essential services not having a CFO, then he and the code enforcement officer, with the help of Bureau Veritas, get a number, expedite, at the very least, an occupancy maximum, so that we can base the 25% off of that number. Is that acceptable
Mhm.
to you?
I know Bureau Veritas has reduced a lot of their services during this.
Mhm.
They're still doing some inspections, but not like they were. So it may take a little bit longer than what we anticipate.
But calculating an occupancy is that not something that can be?
I mean, I don't
You're
know
not sure?
without asking, because like the mayor said, they're gonna have to look at exit signs. They're gonna have to look at different items to determine that number. So we just have to check and find out.
I would say for any of those businesses, essential service businesses that don't have a CO, that we make the exception and we give the exception of, for now, it's just gonna be for the occupancy portion of it. The other items, issues will be addressed once things are back in motion as far as Bureau Veritas. Does that make sense?
Lynn,
point of interest, if you look in the ordinance, the mayor is the fire marshal. That's all.
I'm sorry,
The mayor is the fire marshal.
In the city of Bandera.
I'm the emergency management person, I know that.
There's all kinds of weird stuff in our ordinances.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, my main concern is that we don't place too big of a burden in the middle of all this now. I mean, we're in it,
I agree.
so
You know, this whole thing is a mess. For instance, let's say we limit those to 20 people. I'm just making up a number, 20 people inside. You can have 60 people lined up outside, or another 20 or 30 or 40 in the rain. Are they going to be 6 foot apart from all the way around the block? I mean, this is, I don't know how we're going to enforce this. I mean, what it's going to do. I think it's, I don't disagree that it's a good idea. I do, but I don't know how in the heck, for Lowe's in particular. Now, I could see Tractor Supply, Ranch Store, True Value. Lowe's is going to be hard on everybody. That's just my feeling. Sure.
Other towns are dealing with lines outside the HEBs and everything else. It's another one of those inconveniences that we're dealing with or have to deal with. So,
I think right now it's their cost of operating a business is that they have got to step up their measures. And if they have to staff the people to facilitate the logistics of keeping people safe, that's the expense that they have to endure to protect the community and to be allowed to be in business.
well, there's a slap in the face for you. Sorry, but just the way I feel about it. I mean, here we are, like I said, we're in the middle of the storm now, and then we're going, you know, they're trying to do all they can to satisfy the consumer's needs and stuff, and we're gonna hit them with more regulations and stuff. And you just tell them, well, sorry about that, but that's what you get for being in business.
Well,
I mean, this isn't something you plan for.
I think the highest community need is to stay safe and clean from
Health
the
and
virus.
safety.
Yeah.
the biggest inconvenience is being shut down completely, which a lot of these businesses have. So they're fortunate enough that they're still allowed to stay open. So I think any inconveniences or anything else that's put upon them, I think they'll learn to deal with. Community's been really good as far as going ahead and complying with a lot of this. There's just a few things that we need to tighten up on, such as number of
If you
people.
put a big enough burden on them, then they'll volunteer to shut down anyway. Can we get on with the meeting, please?
Okay, do we have any language for item J?
Yeah. I'll make a motion to add item J stating essential service businesses may operate within an occupancy capped at 25% of the limit stated on their valid certificate of occupancy. Essential service businesses without a current certificate of occupancy will have their occupancy set by the city administrator
And
Code
code
enforcement
and code
officer.
enforcement officer.
through April 30th.
Well,
All
that
this goes through.
goes with the rest of
Just
the.
clarification.
Is that it? I'll second that.
J, conversation, discussion.
You might want to include Bureau Veritas in there also, please.
Sure. So amend to add at the end of that statement, there, Bureau Veritas.
Do you still second?
Second.
Okay, Rebecca. Further discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed.
Lynn, were you gonna add anything on the interior in terms of lines on the floor, or sneeze guards or any of that?
Well, I would like to see all of the businesses do that, and most of them are doing that. I haven't seen Lowe's do the sneeze guards, but
They added them yesterday.
They did? Oh, okay.
So that's what I'm saying. I think that the businesses will comply if we give them some direction. I don't think there's gonna be a lot of resistance here.
Okay, anything else that y'all want to? Yes, ma'am.
Are you guys done with the essential services, like retail?
I was thinking that they should have the markers on the floors for the social distancing. I would like to,
Just about a zero
I
expense.
think they've already got
option.
them.
not all,
I
but
couldn't hear.
So I think they all already have them. The one, the $2 stores, I understand have it, Lowe's, Johnny Boy's True Value has it. They even have the plexiglass shield.
this needs to.
I think we've addressed it enough. I don't
Okay,
want to be here all day.
Well, I can tell you that there's one business in Bandera, Glen, that is not doing anything at all, and I've seen it for myself. There's nothing. There's no social distancing. There's no sign on the door. There's no seize card. They're not doing anything at all, and I'm not going to name them.
It's essential business.
Yes, it's an essential
Report it
business.
to code enforcement and have him take care of it.
I don't see why it hurts to have that in place, though. I mean, especially if you said most of them are doing it anyway.
That's unfortunately why laws are passed. You have a majority of the people that comply, but there's a few that don't, and it requires law to make them comply with enforcement. So I think it is a good idea to go ahead and include that in there.
Okay, then we have a,
Is that not included in the governor's mandate?
He
Not
says
to have
social
tape on the
distancing,
floor.
but not to
Yeah.
No,
have
not the tape on the floor.
or markers of
That's
some
what
kind.
they're doing,
Do you feel that we don't need to go through this or those steps?
I mean, I
That's
think
what I'm
we're,
asking.
I don't think it's a necessary part of this, no. I think it's already being done.
okay,
Yeah.
why don't we make a quick K that says promote social distancing by additional tape on the floor,
Markers on the
signage,
floor.
whatever y'all wanna say.
That's good.
we'll make the motion. Let's move on.
I can't make the motion. so-
I know. You want to
So-
go ahead?
Would you? help me?
Okay, so may I make a motion
Yes,
to add item K? Sorry, I didn't write this down in advance. For essential services to indicate
Promote.
by marking on the floor 6-foot distance between customers in lines, in
Okay,
the checkout line.
There you go.
At registers.
all right, do I have a second? Sherry, second. Discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Okay, yes, Rebecca? Anything else?
Yes, I have an idea that may not be popular, but it is that all restaurants serving still move to curbside only. No coming in the
I'm not
restaurant.
sure, go ahead.
That's the idea. I mean, I don't know if anybody has any discussion
agree
about
with
it
that.
or thoughts, but seeing people going into restaurants, waiting for food, ordering food, it's just an added interaction that I think is really easily avoided by moving to curbside only.
Remove the takeout.
Well,
No.
it's
Take out from
We'll
curb.
take out curbside only.
curbside only.
Do you want to include that they are not allowed to dine out in front of the businesses?
May I address
Yeah.
that?
Go ahead.
Because in what I've been reading, delivery, Curbside means off the property. Delivery means off the property. So, you know, it doesn't mean you can sit out in the parking lot and eat in the groups.
Off the property or off the premises? There's a difference.
I think I closed the governor's last executive order, but I'm looking for it because I specifically read
Governor's orders did stay.
close to dine in.
I actually, if I remember correctly, worded it more in the fact that carry out or to go only. There was no exception in there. I think that would have to be more of an exception.
I think it says, provided however that the use of drive-through, you can, if you're a restaurant, you do drive-through, pickup, or delivery options for food and
Okay,
drink.
I was
Yeah, I
gonna
think
see
that
if
is
you
all.
guys have.
I mean, I'm happy to do it however we see fit. I want it to be the safest for everybody in the community. Curbside and delivery only.
I think so. Sonic is still, you know, they have the remote stalls out there. I think they're still utilizing those. And over at, I guess Doughboys is the one that popped up on Facebook about our Marshall
Yeah.
venue. And again, you know, there's two people sitting at the table. It's not like you have it together. So I think the language should just be curb. Service to the curb.
My idea is to limit the public from going inside of a restaurant to order where there's just so much exposure to food being prepared.
I agree with it.
I do too.
Okay, so we do
L.
language for L.
Motion queen.
So you just want to limit it to drive-through, pickup, delivery, and
Drive-through, curbside, and delivery.
And add in there, and specifically no on-premises dining or not.
I'm
No
not-
customers inside the establishment.
Yeah, that's my intention of
covers
this,
it well
is
enough.
to limit people going inside the establishment.
Drive-through or pick up curbside. And pick up curbside is one, not pick up curbside, it's pick up curbside.
Okay. Sorry, let me get this.
Was that a form of motion?
I'm writing it
In
out.
writing?
I think we were still discussing.
Sorry.
Okay, so you thought it's gonna be unpopular. It's only popular.
And I'll get the exact words off the recording too, so.
Okay, so I'll just make a motion that restaurants will limit their services provided to customers for food to take out curbside only, delivery, and drive-through.
Restaurants and fast food.
Restaurants. Okay, so food service,
Yeah. It's-
that's not gonna include grocery stores, but that's someone selling prepared foods,
Mhm.
right? Okay.
So is that going to allow the Sonic to
We
still
need a
do
second.
their, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
A second,
Wait a second.
as long as they stay in their cars, I guess.
So food services will be limited services to food to take out, drive-through, curbside, or pickup only.
But the takeout, it needs to be really clear that the intention
No
is that
takeout.
customers are not
The
going
Outdoor
It's
pickup
like
only.
outdoor pickup.
Maybe add just
No
that.
customers
That's why I
inside the
said
premises.
curbside, because that's like.
Okay, food to drive-through,
So the
curbside,
premises would mean the whole building and
Outdoor
the
pickup.
outside.
Jay,
How would you address like a Subway, for example?
Are they having
Same
in dining?
Huh?
Are they having in dining?
No, but you have to go in to get the food.
Order.
Same deal. You call ahead.
Well, I guess in that sense, you've got the Pico, the Ice House, and Subway. Are there any others that you can think of that are in that kind of unique situation?
wait a minute, time out. Why wouldn't Pico have to run theirs out to somebody sitting out in the parking lot?
I guess they would.
Well-
I'm just trying to relate.
How do they place it? Or if they don't?
They've already got people coming in though,
Well, I
for
saw,
other things, so.
yeah, well, I did see a sign at Pico's yesterday where they're not having inside dining. That
Yeah,
they've
they
got
have
a-
it blocked
they-
off completely.
They've got no inside.
That's state
Right, but it still doesn't address that they're going in food like we're trying to address here, and I think that would have to be an exception.
because
Because
it's a
you've already got
store.
so many people going in anyway.
That's
It's
the
like Subway.
difference.
Their
Right.
sole, and maybe word it that their
Service.
sole service is,
Food.
just food.
Because
for
actually,
those
come to think of
facilities.
it, the meat market is in a similar situation. You've got people going in to order their grocery food and getting takeout. So that, I think that's why it's important to specifically identifying the ones that are excluded, that would be excluded
You-
because
I
of the
guess you would probably have
circumstances.
to.
And thank you for
Meat
bringing.
market does have curbside.
Who does?
Meat market,
So you want to amend?
Hold on. But I could still go into the meat market and order from the
Okay.
counter, right?
sure, yes.
Yes, you can.
So
And
that's,
get your steak.
that's why I would say they should be excluded from this, because they have the grocery side. Same thing with the Subway, Pico, and then is it
Bandera ice.
Bandera Ice House? Are there any others?
Well, Mini Mart, I think they have sausage wraps and stuff like that. So convenience stores.
Just about
meat
any of the
market,
convenience stores have some kind of food.
Right,
Hot
it's a
dogs.
self-service style.
That's
There.
true.
So we're not.
So you
even
want to
addressing
exclude
that one.
convenience stores
Bandera Meat Market
and your meat market
and
and
the
Subway.
Subway.
Or put it, if their essential services consist of anything other than prepared food.
That's good. Did you get that, Lynn? So the amendment would be to exclude essential services establishments that provide items in
Other
addition,
than
other than
prepared food.
prepared foods.
Because that would include meat market too, see, because it's not prepared. Right? That would cover that.
Does that cover Subway then? I don't know. Should we just name?
Yeah, theirs is prepared. So they would need to run it out.
Well, they're inside and
But they're inside the store, so there's the exception.
service
That's
establishment.
not their only service. We're talking about restaurants, and that's their only business, is prepared food. Right.
Okay, so restaurants whose only business is prepared food, with the exception of Subway.
Well, you're amending,
Well.
your amendment is excluding
Automatically.
essential
Hold on.
services, essential service establishments that include prepared foods.
As long as it's the same.
So if they're in
Okay.
Lowe's, that's an
So we're
essential
good.
service.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay,
I think that'll cover it.
Is Subway right now allowing dining?
No,
Right.
nobody in the state is allowing dining.
Okay.
they have it blocked off. You can't even
They've
get
been
to
blocked
it.
off for a long time.
We don't have to identify that because it's state mandated.
Okay, so we have an amendment and we have a second.
Okay.
Can I hear the amended motion, please?
Jill?
Excluding, so the amendment is about the restaurants and that, but to exclude essential service establishments that include prepared foods. So that would be all the convenience stores, Lowe's, which would include Subway.
Are we gonna get this city attorney's kind of review of
Language on
Probably
it.
not.
all of these that we're putting in place?
Okay, all in favor? Yeah, did you want more discussion?
Go ahead.
All in favor? Are we ready? More discussion? Yes, please.
I mean, we've taken this much time. Should we call Dan and run this by him? Because, I mean, is he gonna tell us what, you know, you can't exclude?
That's a good point.
is there some way we can vote on this and just add that
Well, there's
Based
no
upon the
point in
city's
voting if it's not any, if
attorney's
we're not allowed to
decision.
do it, so.
Well, we
Might
can
as
go
well
ahead and
get the
vote on
city
it, then we can go away with it. If Dan
Okay.
doesn't-
You may have a
I
different way
have
of
a
wording
text
it.
into him. I think he was going into a meeting, so.
Can I please hear the original motion and the amendment again?
Okay, well, the original motion, you had most of it, but I can try to go through it. It was to, for food service industries, restaurants, to limit service food to drive-through, curbside, outdoor pickup only, excluding convenience stores, except essential service establishments that have prepared food. Is what I have.
Okay. It does sound a little bit,
But you wrote the first one and second one down word for word, and I just kind of wrote it as fast as I could.
I didn't
I kept
actually,
scratching things
write
out
anything
because y'all went
down.
from fast to take out outdoor.
okay. I'm a
So-
little bit worried about the amendment, that it's
Okay.
exclude essential services.
Well, first you said, okay, so we went from restaurants to food service in the beginning of the motion. All food service industries will limit service to go food to drive-through, curbside, or outdoor pickup. Okay, everybody's good with that?
No,
And
and then,
With the
then,
exception.
no, and then you said excluding convenience stores or essential service establishments that have prepared foods.
other than prepared foods. I thought that was
Okay.
the point. So if they're like a
Excluding essential,
essential services is everything that's
offer.
open right now.
Mhm.
What we were trying to get around is that they offer items other than prepared foods.
Other essential item services, I think
Yes,
maybe the
yes.
word, way to word it.
excluding essential service establishments that include,
Include items other than prepared foods. That, Jay, that's where we were talking about, like with the meat market, for example, and I'm sorry to keep using them, but they have other items, they're an essential service that's open for business, and they have items for sale that are not strictly prepared foods. So
Right.
you can go in and shop for those items and get your to-go food.
Right, because they're an essential
Right,
business.
right.
The fact that they're essential services tells you.
No, because, and I'll use my family, Brick Server Cafe is an essential service because it's a restaurant. But that's the type of business we're trying to, that's where we want the curbside.
I'm not talking about, I'm talking about the exception, the essential services exception of the convenience store.
What about it?
I know what you're getting at. So it's a
Everything
matter of
that's
wording
open is an essential service.
Can I get an amendment, please?
that offer other
Other than prepared
essential
foods.
services,
Yeah, well, I just-
other than food service, or other than prepared foods.
okay, so right now the amendment is, well, let me just read it from the beginning, okay? Food service industries will limit service to go food, drive-through, curbside, or outdoor pickup, excluding convenience stores or essential service establishments that include items of prepared food.
Other than
Other than.
prepared food.
And take out convenience stores too, wouldn't you? Because it's an essential already.
You know, so,
Once again,
Excluding convenience stores and essential service establishments that include items other than prepared food.
does it have to say convenience stores, or do you want to leave the convenience stores in there?
I don't
Because
think
that's
it's,
I don't think
I
it
think it's
does.
redundant. I think you can
Yeah,
cross it
just-
off.
Other
Just say-
essential services. should cover it all.
You'll want it again from the top. Food service industries will limit service to go to drive-through, curbside, or outdoor pickup, excluding essential service establishments that include items other than prepared food.
I think that's,
That's good.
is that it?
I think that covers it.
That sell items other than prepared food,
Okay.
or that provide. items.
Provide.
Sell or provide.
Sell or provide,
Or
that's good.
Instead of the
provide.
word include. So amended. Is that
On the motion.
acceptable?
Vote.
Okay, are we all clear on the motion now?
It's just till the April 30th, it's just for the duration.
Once I type it up, I'll make sure.
It's just for the duration. of
I know what
April
you're-
30th.
All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Rebecca, got anything else?
I like that.
Did we
I
should
think
go
all
on?
my, yeah, the points.
And we'll
Good
get,
job.
council, we will get, Dan to look through all this before we put it into effect. All right, C is actually the first reading of resolution 2020-001, authorizing a program for certain financial assistance by the Bandera Economic Development Corporation up to an amount to be determined to be distributed as business grants, a line of credit, or other financial assistance to be used for employee retention and other eligible expenditures for a line of credit or other business located within the city of Bandera. But before, wait a minute. Excuse me, do my explanation. What this does, this requires two readings. We're not gonna actually read it, but you know, it's here. There are blanks in it. How much they want to put into the program, how much they want to allow each business that applies. Now, they haven't even had a chance to consider this yet. So what this first reading does is it allows them at their meeting on the 9th, which is this Thursday, to consider programs and bring it back to council for approval prior to the second reading, when we will approve the programs and then have the second reading with the blanks filled in. Okay,
So you just need to read the heading.
ma'am?
You just need to read the heading.
Okay. Okay, ordinance 371,
No, resolution.
resolution, for the heck of the resolution. Why do you have a resolution? Okay, resolution number 2020-001, a resolution of the Bandera City Council approving a project of the Bandera Economic Development Corporation as authorized by sections 501 through 505 of the Texas Local Government Code, authorizing certain financial assistance as a grant, line of credit, or other form of financial assistance to be used for businesses located within the city of Bandera, Texas, and providing for an immediate effective date.
That's it.
Okay,
Moving on.
do I have a motion for the next discussion?
Oh.
Go to resolution.
You
Never
did
mind.
most of you just
Move
started.
on.
Jerry,
D.
you had a comment? We're not gonna have a long, lengthy discussion, but go ahead, Jerry.
Initially, I thought this was a great idea, and it very well still may be. But I think that the first thing we need to do is spend time educating ourselves on the programs that are already available through the government. And then maybe add into that later, but without taking into consideration the programs that are already in place by the federal government, I don't see how we could spend our time trying to create something new when there's already things out there. And also based upon the fact that there's so much money that's being given out through the federal government. If the employees and or businesses don't take it upon themselves to at least educate themselves on those programs and apply, then I don't think that we should be too concerned about spending our money
Okay,
otherwise.
thank you, Terry. Rebecca, this is not, do you want a quick comment?
I have a quick
Anybody?
comment, and that is that part of the stimulus package for disaster relief is being pushed through community development block grants, to which will be distributed through economic development corporations. So some of this money coming through the CARES package is coming specifically through this route, and this is a part of that. So when you say our money,
Mhm.
it's not the sales tax dollars that we're talking about here specifically. It's money that the EDC can apply for through community development block grants. So
I understand.
Okay,
I do understand
let's
that.
just move on now, please. You've had a
Okay.
comment.
Item D.
Okay, item D. Approval of directing the city attorney to work with the BEDC attorney to amend BEDC bylaws. Item D. Rebecca.
motion to approve.
Second.
Approved. Then seconds, discussion. All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Item E. Approval of ordinance 371, amending chapter 7, flood damage prevention. Jay, this is part of that, thing we got from FEMA.
The mitigation, and we've just now got information on it to where how we can start the process of seeing if we're eligible to get more funds from the 2016 flood that would help us, say, on the wastewater plant, for example, or several different things that we could be eligible for. I don't know all the details yet. Like I said, just got it Friday evening and have not read through all 211 pages yet.
Dan has read this.
Yes, Dan.
Who drafted this?
Dan, as far as
Oh,
I know.
Dan did,
Mhm.
through the FEMA guidelines?
Yes.
I need it.
So moved.
Lynn,
Okay, any
Second.
further discussion?
Second.
Oh, I thought we already had a second, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Backwards, okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Okay, item F, approval of ordinance 372, establishing the maximum speed limit on State Highway 16 South. Jay again?
Okay, and what this is doing is extending the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit, the way I read this map, all the way to the city limit sign. And it's starting on, I don't know if y'all have this, okay? And everybody knows what it says? Anyway, what it is starting at mile point 100 and extends all the way out to mile point I can't read that, 1.784, which is the city limit. So it means that you will have 35-mile-an-hour speed limit all the way from the 35-mile marker
55.
to where the 55 is now. Yes, ma'am, at the city limit sign.
And this was confirmed by your conversation with
Marshall Heath
Marshall
from
Heath
TxDOT and also with Cali C.
And then I believe it transitions to 45 miles an hour for like close to 0.2 miles. Is that correct? I believe it was 0.17.
It is not, well, no.
I'm sorry?
According to this, 0.213.
Okay.
But when I asked them distinctly, I said, is this to the city limits? They said, yes, this is to the city limits. And then after that, it cannot exceed or decrease by more than 15 miles an hour either way up or down.
And I believe, though it does show on there, it will go to 45 and then 55 after that.
Yeah, I tried to read it too. Where did you say it's going back to 55, like out of Bandera Creek?
I would have to go back through it and look, because I'm pretty sure.
After
I
this,
feel pretty confident that's what it's gonna do, just because they can't go all the way from 35 to 55.
Right.
They have to transition, and that transition did go from 35 to 45 and then 55.
but if you look at it this way, and it's still very confusing to me, is 35, then it shows 45 right here for 2/10 of a mile.
Right.
Which is not the city limit sign, it's before the city limit sign. It's
Correct.
actually,
So the 35 really doesn't, at least my measurements, I tried measuring it several times. That transition will take place from the 35 to 45.
just past 15th Street, about 0.43 miles.
It'll be just before where the sign's at now. And then the 55 will be just further, I believe, very close to Dr. Jabbar Family Practice facility.
It's already on there. So, what,
I'm sorry.
100 It's only about 150 yards or so from that.
Something like that, right? It's not very far that that's going to take place, but it'll still occur. It'll calm down up through that area, especially going by Jabbar's office. It should have an effect. Hopefully.
It'd be better if we had 45 all the way to Bandera Creek, but
We tried. That's since it's out of the city limits. We don't have any control over that, other than getting the county to request a study to do that.
motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
The only thing that I want to add is how this will affect those golf carts and rangers. Because they're allowed to drive those anywhere that it's 35 and under. So that means.
We just expanded the 35 and
Yeah.
under.
It goes even
So they're
further
gonna
now.
get to drive
Even further.
out, but is that really a good idea to have them on the state highway?
Golf carts are not allowed on state highways,
No, okay.
There you go.
not supposed to be.
Thanks. Forgot about
Okay, further discussion?
Thank you guys for your work.
Thank you, Jerry, for getting on this. All in favor? All in favor, that's opposed.
that. I
Item
appreciate
G.
the support.
Approval of Langford Community Management Services request an extension from the state of Texas for the Bandera Shops and Lodge project number 7216072. Glenn,
Move to approve.
Glenn makes a motion to approve. Rebecca seconds. Discussion. Jerry.
I'm for this as long as he had already stated in there that he was going to hire the 9 employees, and that's why I want to make sure that it is contingent upon that those 9 employees are hired before May 28th.
We met with him personally. Rebecca, when was it, a month or so ago?
Ish.
And he assured us at that time that he would be hiring his employees, training them
And he
on site.
stated it in the letter,
Exactly what he says in the letter.
and that made it better. But
So I think part of the agreement is that 7 out of the 9 employees must reside in Bandera County, so, and also meet the state of Texas LMI guidelines. Are these the 9 that he's referring to?
Yes.
Yes.
A lot hinges on getting that hotel up and going.
Yes.
We have $225,000 in a grant from the Texas Department of Agriculture to make the infrastructure improvements, the Oak Street, the getting the utilities to the point. Part of that agreement with the Texas Department of Agriculture is based on this employee hiring and retention.
Right.
So if we don't agree to apply for this extension, the state says, then the city is out $225,000. We have to pay that money back. So our option from there, should we not approve this, is to go after the developer, which was, we all know what Texas is will get you. So I think we definitely should give this a shot. I was first hoping for 90 days, but I'm really good with 6 months. That's not a problem. Glenn.
On the question, vote.
On what?
On the question, that means take the vote. Calling for the vote.
I'm sorry, I
Just
couldn't
one.
hear you.
other
All in
comment,
favor?
well, I would still like to.
He's already on the question. What?
I would like to address that they've already been approved for an extension one time previously, correct, for a year. I would like to someway make it clear that this is the last extension to be granted. That will put pressure on them.
Well, I'm pretty sure the TDA is gonna make it quite clear this.
And I can assure you, the pressure is on them. They want nothing more than to
I'm
get
sure.
this hotel open.
Okay.
They're,
So let's,
they're
Okay.
doing their best.
I'm good.
all in favor? All in favor, none opposed, thank you. Okay, item 6, requests and announcements. Request for future agenda, folks, let's just
Right now.
hang on to that one until we see where we're going from here. I would like to have a meeting on the 16th, if it all works out. Announcements, I have an announcement. Gateway Church, just outside of town, is doing the most innovative thing I could possibly imagine. You know, the governor and the attorney general have all given down different opinions, or the same opinion that religious services are, you know, as long as social distancing is practiced, this is nothing they can do. They're having a drive-in, like in the old-fashioned drive-in movie theaters, a drive-in church service Easter Sunday morning.
That's cool.
You bring your family, you stay in your car, you participate in the service. As I get the time, I will let everybody know. I think they've got like 13 acres out there. It's a wonderful thing. So,
Good idea.
to adjourn,
Motion, thank you, Suzanne. Motion to adjourn.
and second. All in favor, that's opposed. It is.
Thank you, guys.
11:31.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Thank y'all, stay safe.
Good job.
Good job.
Yeah.